Have you ever wondered why some people are trusted as leaders long before they ever receive the title? Most people believe leadership begins the day someone gives you authority, but that's backwards. A title can make you a manager. It cannot make you someone others choose to follow. The people who inspire us don't wait for permission to lead. They don't wait until they have the corner office, the bigger paycheck, or their name at the top of the organizational chart. They start by taking responsibility when no one is watching. They choose courage over comfort, service over status, and purpose over recognition. Here's the surprising truth: the habits you practice before success are the same habits that determine whether success will ever trust you. Leadership is not a destination you arrive at one day. It is a decision you make every single day, in the way you listen, the way you respond under pressure, the way you treat people who have nothing to offer you in return. In a world obsessed with personal branding, followers, and instant recognition, the greatest leaders are still built the old-fashioned way, through consistency, integrity, and the willingness to put others before themselves. People don't follow confidence alone. They follow clarity. They follow purpose. They follow someone who makes them feel safe enough to believe in something bigger than themselves. So, if you've been waiting for someone to finally recognize your potential, this message may change the way you think forever. Because the moment you begin acting like the leader you hope to become is the moment others begin seeing what you've seen in yourself all along. The biggest misunderstanding about leadership is that it starts the moment someone gives you authority. We grow up believing that leadership is something earned through promotions, titles, years of experience, or the approval of someone above us. We tell ourselves, when I become the manager, then I'll lead. When I start my own company, then people will listen to me. When I have more experience, then I'll step up. But leadership doesn't begin with permission. It begins with responsibility. Responsibility is a choice. It is a decision you make long before anyone notices you. It shows up in the moments when no one is watching, when there is no applause, no reward, and no guarantee that your effort will ever be recognized. Those moments reveal who you are becoming. They reveal whether you are preparing yourself for leadership or simply waiting for it to arrive. Think about the people who have had the greatest influence on your life. Chances are, many of them never introduced themselves by their title. You probably don't remember the promotion they received or the size of their office. What you remember is how they made you feel. You remember the teacher who believed in you when you doubted yourself. You remember the coach who challenged you because they saw potential you couldn't yet see. You remember the colleague who stood beside you during difficult moments instead of protecting only their own interests. None of those moments required authority. They required responsibility. Responsibility means refusing to say, "That's not my job." It means seeing a problem and asking, "What can I do to help?" instead of asking, "Whose fault is this?" It shifts your attention away from blame and toward contribution. This simple shift changes everything because leaders are recognized by the value they create, not by the position they hold. Too many people spend years waiting for confidence before taking responsibility. But confidence rarely comes first. Confidence is usually the result of taking responsibility over and over again. Every difficult conversation you choose to have, every promise you keep, every mistake you own, and every challenge you face honestly becomes another piece of evidence that you are capable of leading yourself before leading anyone else. The truth is, responsibility often feels uncomfortable. It asks you to act before you feel ready. It asks you to raise your hand when everyone else stays silent. It asks you to protect others even when protecting yourself would be easier. Human beings naturally seek comfort because comfort feels safe. But leadership has never been about choosing what feels easiest. It has always been about choosing what serves people best. There is a reason people trust certain individuals during uncertain times. It isn't because those individuals always have the perfect answers. It's because they consistently demonstrate that they are willing to carry responsibility, even when the outcome is uncertain. They remain calm when others panic. They stay curious when others become defensive. They listen before they speak. These are not skills that suddenly appear after a promotion. These are habits developed long before anyone is officially in charge. Responsibility also means owning your failures without letting them define your identity. Every leader makes mistakes. Every single one. The difference is that real leaders don't spend their energy protecting their image. They spend their energy learning. They ask better questions instead of making better excuses. They admit when they were wrong because they understand that honesty builds trust faster than perfection ever could. This mindset transforms relationships. When people see someone consistently accepting responsibility, they begin to feel safe around that person. They know they won't be blamed for every mistake. They know they will be heard. They know that someone is thinking beyond personal success and considering the success of the entire group. That feeling of safety is where trust begins, and trust is the foundation upon which every great team is built. Imagine walking into any room with one simple question in your mind. How can I leave this place better than I found it? That question changes your behavior immediately. You become more attentive. You become more generous with your time. You become more willing to solve problems instead of pointing them out. You stop measuring your value by what you receive and start measuring it by what you contribute. This doesn't mean carrying every burden alone. Responsibility is not about pretending to be the hero. In fact, one of the greatest responsibilities a leader accepts is creating opportunities for others to grow. Instead of needing to be the smartest person in the room, they ask questions that help others think. Instead of seeking all the credit, they celebrate the people around them. Instead of controlling every outcome, they build environments where others feel empowered to take ownership themselves. The remarkable thing is that people notice this long before they recognize your title. They begin asking for your opinion. They trust your judgment. They seek your guidance during difficult situations. Without realizing it, they have already started following your example because leadership was never about authority in the first place. It was always about the willingness to take responsibility when it mattered most. Trust is the invisible force behind every great leader. It cannot be demanded, borrowed, or manufactured through authority. It is earned slowly, one interaction at a time, through consistent actions that prove your words can be believed. People don't follow leaders because they are the loudest voice in the room. They follow leaders because they feel safe enough to believe that this person will do what they say they will do. We often think trust is built during extraordinary moments, a major success, a crisis, or a defining achievement. But the truth is much simpler. Trust is built in ordinary moments. It is built when you arrive prepared. It is built when you keep a promise, even if no one would notice if you broke it. It is built when you admit you don't know something instead of pretending to have all the answers. These moments may seem small, but leadership is rarely defined by one grand gesture. It is shaped by hundreds of small decisions that reveal your character over time. Consistency is what gives people confidence in you. Imagine crossing a bridge every day. You don't stop to question whether it will hold you because it has proven itself again and again. Relationships work the same way. Every honest conversation, every commitment fulfilled, every respectful interaction adds another piece to that bridge. Eventually, people stop wondering if they can rely on you. They simply know they can. The challenge is that consistency is not exciting. It doesn't usually earn applause. There are no headlines for someone who quietly does the right thing every single day. In today's world, we celebrate dramatic transformations and overnight success stories, but real leadership rarely happens overnight. It grows through repetition. The leader who inspires confidence is often the one who has been showing up with the same integrity long before anyone started paying attention. Integrity is one of those words we hear often, yet many people misunderstand it. Integrity is not about appearing perfect. It is about being whole. It means your values remain the same whether you are speaking to your team, your family, a stranger, or yourself. It means the person people see in public is the same person you are when nobody is watching. There is tremendous freedom in that because you no longer have to manage different versions of yourself. You simply live according to principles that don't change with circumstances. People are remarkably good at sensing authenticity. They may not always be able to explain it, but they can feel the difference between someone who is performing leadership and someone who is living it. Performance depends on being watched. Character does not. A leader with integrity chooses honesty even when deception would be easier. They choose fairness even when favoritism would benefit them personally. They choose accountability even when blame would protect their reputation. Service is another foundation of trust, and perhaps the most misunderstood. Many people believe leadership is about being served. The reality is the opposite. The best leaders wake up asking, how can I help my people succeed? Rather than, how can my people help me succeed? That shift changes every decision they make. They begin measuring success not by how much recognition they receive, but by how much growth they create in others. Think about the leaders who have had the greatest impact on your life. They probably made you feel seen. They listened without rushing to speak. They cared about your potential, not just your performance. They challenged you because they believed you were capable of more. They celebrated your victories without making them about themselves. Those experiences leave lasting impressions because human beings remember how someone made them feel long after they forget what was said. Serving others doesn't mean avoiding difficult conversations. In fact, real service often requires courage. Sometimes the most caring thing a leader can do is tell someone the truth they need to hear, even if it's uncomfortable. Protecting someone's feelings at the expense of their growth is not kindness. Helping them improve with honesty and respect is. Service is about acting in another person's best interest, not choosing the easiest path. One of the greatest tests of trust comes during difficult times. Anyone can appear trustworthy when everything is going well. The real question is what happens when pressure increases. Do you remain calm or spread panic? Do you protect your team or protect your image? Do you communicate openly or hide behind silence? Pressure has a way of revealing priorities. It strips away performance and exposes character. People don't expect leaders to be flawless. They expect them to be honest. If something goes wrong, they want transparency. If a mistake is made, they want ownership. Ironically, admitting a mistake often strengthens trust rather than weakens it. Why? Because honesty tells people they are dealing with someone who values truth more than ego. That creates psychological safety, and psychological safety allows people to contribute their best ideas without fear. Trust also grows when leaders remain curious. Instead of assuming they know everything, they ask questions. Instead of interrupting, they listen. Instead of defending every opinion, they seek understanding. Curiosity communicates respect because it tells people their perspective matters. When people feel heard, they become more willing to collaborate, more willing to innovate, and more willing to support a shared purpose. Every interaction becomes an opportunity to strengthen or weaken trust. The way you respond to criticism, the way you speak about people who are not in the room, the way you handle disappointment, the way you celebrate someone else's success. None of these moments seem significant on their own, but together they create a pattern. And people don't place their trust in isolated moments. They place their trust in patterns. Over time, something remarkable begins to happen. You no longer have to convince people to believe in you. Your consistency speaks before you do. Your integrity creates confidence before you make a promise. Your service inspires loyalty before you ask for commitment. And without realizing it, you become the kind of person others willingly follow, not because they have to, but because they know they can depend on you. One of the greatest obstacles to leadership is the belief that confidence comes before action. We tell ourselves that once we feel ready, we'll speak up. Once we believe in ourselves, we'll take the opportunity. Once we have enough experience, we'll begin leading. But confidence doesn't appear out of nowhere. It is built through action. It grows every time you choose courage over comfort, purpose over fear, and progress over perfection. The mindset of a leader begins long before anyone else recognizes it. It begins in the conversations you have with yourself. Every day, your mind is asking a question, am I capable? The answer is shaped less by your talent and more by your habits. If your habits are built around avoiding discomfort, seeking approval, and waiting for certainty, your confidence will always depend on external circumstances. But if your habits are built around learning, serving, and taking responsibility, confidence becomes something far more stable. It becomes an internal resource rather than an external reward. Human beings are wired to avoid uncertainty. Thousands of years ago, uncertainty often meant danger. Today, uncertainty might simply mean raising your hand in a meeting, sharing an idea that could be criticized, or taking on a challenge you've never faced before. Yet your brain often reacts as if your survival is at stake. That's why fear feels so convincing. It doesn't whisper, it shouts. It tells you to wait, to stay quiet, to avoid risk. Leaders hear that same voice. The difference is not that they are fearless. The difference is that they refuse to let fear make the decision. They understand that courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is choosing to move forward while fear is still sitting beside you. This is where mindset changes everything. Instead of asking, what if I fail? A leader asks, what if I grow? Instead of thinking, what if people judge me? They wonder, what if someone needs to hear this? The focus shifts away from protecting the ego and towards serving a purpose. And when purpose becomes greater than fear, action becomes possible. Purpose has an incredible ability to reorganize your priorities. When your goal is only to look successful, every mistake feels like a threat. But when your goal is to contribute something meaningful, mistakes become part of the learning process. They stop defining your identity and start refining your ability. This is why some people remain stuck despite having incredible talent. They spend so much energy trying to avoid failure that they never give themselves permission to grow. They mistake preparation for progress. They collect books, courses, certifications, and advice, believing one more piece of information will finally make them feel ready. But readiness is not a feeling. It is something earned by stepping into situations that stretch you beyond what feels comfortable. Think about learning to ride a bicycle. No amount of reading could replace the experience of getting on the bike. You wobble, you fall, you adjust. Slowly, your balance improves. Leadership works exactly the same way. You don't develop confidence by imagining leadership. You develop it by practicing leadership in small, everyday moments. That practice begins with how you respond to challenges. When something goes wrong, do you immediately look for someone to blame, or do you ask what can be learned? When someone disagrees with you, do you become defensive or do you become curious? When an opportunity appears that feels intimidating, do you retreat or do you lean into the discomfort? Every one of these choices strengthens or weakens your leadership mindset. Another important shift is learning to separate your worth from your performance. Many people believe every mistake says something about who they are. If they fail, they assume they are a failure. If they are rejected, they assume they are not good enough. But leaders understand that outcomes are information, not identity. They know one unsuccessful presentation does not define their ability to communicate. One missed opportunity does not define their future. One difficult season does not define their potential. This perspective creates resilience. Instead of being broken by setbacks, leaders become students of them. They examine what happened without allowing shame to take control. They ask better questions. What worked? What didn't? What can I improve? Every challenge becomes feedback rather than proof of inadequacy. There is another mindset that separates leaders from everyone else. They play the long game. In a world driven by instant results, they understand that meaningful growth requires patience. They don't expect trust to appear overnight. They don't expect influence after one speech or one achievement. They understand that leadership is built through consistency over time. This long-term thinking changes daily behavior. Instead of chasing quick recognition, they invest in lasting relationships. Instead of trying to impress people, they try to help them. Instead of focusing on being right, they focus on learning. These choices may not produce immediate rewards, but they create something much more valuable: credibility. Mindset also shapes how you see other people. A fearful mindset sees competition everywhere. It believes someone else's success somehow reduces your own chances. A leadership mindset sees abundance. It understands that helping others grow does not diminish your own potential. In fact, the more people around you succeed, the stronger the entire team becomes. This is why true leaders celebrate the achievements of others without feeling threatened. They understand that leadership is not about being the smartest person in the room. It is about creating an environment where everyone feels capable of contributing their best. That requires humility. It requires confidence that is rooted in purpose rather than ego. Confidence built on ego is fragile because it depends on constant validation. It needs praise to survive. It fears criticism because criticism feels like an attack on identity. But confidence built on purpose is different. It welcomes feedback because feedback makes the mission stronger. It values learning over looking impressive. It chooses growth over comfort again and again. Every morning offers a choice. You can wait until someone believes in you before you begin acting like a leader, or you can decide that your actions today will become the evidence others eventually recognize. The mindset comes first, the recognition follows, and every courageous decision, every difficult conversation, every act of responsibility becomes another step toward becoming the kind of leader people trust long before they ever notice the title beside your name. If you ask most people why they choose to follow someone, they'll often mention intelligence, confidence, charisma, or experience. Those qualities certainly matter. But they are rarely the reason people stay committed during difficult times. People remain loyal to leaders who give them something far more valuable than instructions. They give them purpose. They provide clarity when everything feels uncertain. And perhaps most importantly, they create an environment where people feel safe enough to contribute their best. Human beings are not simply motivated by money, recognition, or status. Those things can influence behavior for a while, but they rarely inspire lasting commitment. We all want to know that what we do matters. We want to believe that our effort is connected to something greater than ourselves. When people understand why their work matters, they stop feeling like they are completing tasks. They begin feeling like they are building something meaningful. This is one of the most important responsibilities of a leader. It is not merely to tell people what to do. It is to remind them why it matters. Without purpose, even talented people lose energy. They become distracted. They begin doing only what is required because they no longer see the significance of their contribution. But when purpose is clear, ordinary people often accomplish extraordinary things because they believe they are serving something beyond their own interests. Purpose gives direction during uncertainty. Every leader eventually faces moments where the path ahead is unclear. Markets change, teams struggle, plans fail, unexpected challenges appear. During those moments, People naturally look for someone who can help them make sense of what is happening. They are not expecting perfection, they are looking for clarity. Clarity does not mean having every answer. In fact, some of the strongest leaders openly admit when they do not know exactly what comes next. What makes them different is that they remain clear about what they stand for. They know their values. They know their mission. They know the principles that guide every decision. When people understand those principles, uncertainty becomes easier to navigate because they know the direction will remain consistent even if the path changes. Think about walking through a dense forest at night. If someone hands you a flashlight, they have not removed every obstacle. The trees are still there. The path may still twist and turn, but suddenly you can see your next step. That is what clarity does. It does not eliminate difficulty. It gives people enough confidence to keep moving forward. Leaders often make the mistake of believing they need to sound certain all the time. They think confidence means pretending to know everything, but people can sense when certainty is fake. What they truly appreciate is honesty combined with conviction. A leader can say, "I don't know exactly how we'll solve this, but I know what we believe in, and we'll figure it out together." Those words create far more trust than pretending to have perfect answers. There is another element that transforms influence into genuine leadership, and that is psychological safety. It may sound like a complicated idea, but at its heart it is simple. People perform at their best when they feel safe enough to be themselves. They need to know they can ask questions without embarrassment. They need to know they can admit mistakes without being humiliated. They need to know their ideas will be heard rather than dismissed. When people feel unsafe, something remarkable happens inside the brain. Their attention shifts away from creativity and collaboration towards self-protection. Instead of asking, "How can I contribute?" they begin asking, "How can I avoid being blamed?" Innovation slows. Communication becomes guarded. Problems remain hidden because people fear the consequences of speaking honestly. This is why fear is such an ineffective leadership strategy. Fear may produce obedience, but it rarely produces excellence. Someone who works because they are afraid will usually do the minimum necessary to avoid punishment. Someone who works because they feel trusted will often go far beyond expectations because they genuinely care about the mission. Creating psychological safety begins with simple behaviors that are often overlooked. It begins with listening without interrupting. It means thanking people for raising concerns instead of becoming defensive. It means asking questions before making assumptions. It means responding to mistakes with curiosity instead of immediate judgment. These actions send a powerful message. You matter here. Your voice matters. Your growth matters. One of the strongest ways leaders build safety is by modeling vulnerability themselves. Many people believe vulnerability weakens authority. In reality, it strengthens trust. When a leader admits they made a mistake, they give everyone else permission to be honest. When they ask for help, they show that collaboration is valued more than ego. When they acknowledge uncertainty, they create space for others to contribute ideas. This does not reduce respect. It increases it. People are far more willing to follow someone who is authentic than someone who constantly pretends to be flawless. Perfection creates distance. Authenticity creates connection. Influence also grows through consistency in how people are treated. Great leaders do not reserve kindness for important clients or senior executives. They treat everyone with the same level of respect. Whether speaking to an intern, a new employee, or a longtime colleague, this consistency communicates something powerful. It says that every individual has value, not because of their position, but because they are human. Respect is contagious. When leaders consistently model it, teams begin reflecting that behavior toward one another. Conversations become more constructive. Conflicts become opportunities for understanding instead of personal attacks. People begin sharing ideas more freely because they know they will be evaluated on the quality of their thinking rather than the status of their title. Purpose, clarity, and psychological safety also strengthen resilience. Every organization, every family, every community will face difficult seasons. The question is not whether challenges will come. The question is how people respond when they do. Teams built only on rules often fall apart under pressure because rules alone cannot sustain commitment. But teams built on shared purpose remain connected because they understand what they are fighting for. Teams guided by clarity remain focused because they know what matters most. Teams protected by psychological safety remain united because they trust one another enough to face uncertainty together. When people experience these three things consistently, something extraordinary begins to happen. They stop waiting to be told what to do. They begin taking initiative. They stop protecting only their own success and start protecting the success of the entire team. They encourage one another. They solve problems together. They willingly step forward during difficult moments because they know they are part of something meaningful, led by someone who values both the mission and the people equally. There is a common belief that leadership is built in defining moments. We imagine that one big opportunity, one breakthrough, or one extraordinary achievement transforms an ordinary person into an exceptional leader. But if you look closely at the people who earn lasting trust, you discover something very different. Their leadership was not created in one dramatic moment. It was shaped by the small habits they practiced every single day, long before anyone noticed them. The future version of you is being built by the decisions you make today. Not the once-in-a-lifetime decisions, but the ordinary ones. The way you respond when you're tired. The way you treat people who cannot advance your career. The way you handle criticism. The way you keep your promises when nobody is checking. These moments seem insignificant because they rarely receive attention. Yet these are the moments that quietly shape your character. Character is simply a collection of repeated choices. You don't become trustworthy because you decide to be trustworthy once. You become trustworthy because you repeatedly choose honesty over convenience. You don't become disciplined because of one productive day. You become disciplined because you consistently choose what matters most over what feels easiest. Leadership works the same way. It is less about extraordinary talent and far more about extraordinary consistency. Every habit is casting a vote for the person you are becoming. When you choose to listen instead of interrupting, you strengthen patience. When you prepare instead of making excuses, you strengthen responsibility. When you admit a mistake instead of hiding it, you strengthen integrity. None of these actions seem life-changing on their own, but together they create an identity that people can depend on. This is why leadership should never be viewed as an event. It is a practice. Just as an athlete trains before competition, a leader trains before responsibility arrives. Waiting until you receive a leadership role to develop leadership habits is like waiting until the championship game to begin practicing. By then, the opportunity has already arrived. The preparation should have happened long before. One of the most powerful habits any future leader can develop is learning to pause before reacting. Human beings are emotional creatures. When something unexpected happens, our first instinct is often defensive. We interrupt, we blame, we justify, we assume the worst. But leadership requires something different. It requires the discipline to create space between what happens and how you respond. In that brief pause lies wisdom. Instead of reacting from emotion, you begin responding from purpose. You ask yourself, what response will help rather than hurt? What action reflects my values rather than my frustration? Over time, this habit changes not only your behavior, but also the way people experience you. They begin seeing someone who remains steady under pressure rather than someone controlled by emotion. Another daily habit that shapes leadership is curiosity. The strongest leaders are not the ones who always have the best answers. They are the ones who ask the best questions. They approach conversations with a desire to understand rather than a desire to win. They listen to perspectives that challenge their own thinking. They recognize that every person has experiences they do not have and knowledge they do not possess. Curiosity protects leaders from one of the greatest dangers of success, believing they have nothing left to learn. The moment you stop learning is often the moment you stop growing. Leadership is not about proving your intelligence. It is about expanding your understanding. Every meaningful conversation becomes an opportunity to learn something new about people, about challenges, and about yourself. Gratitude is another habit that often goes unnoticed. In a culture that constantly pushes us toward the next achievement, it is easy to overlook the people who made today's success possible. Leaders who regularly express appreciation create stronger relationships because people want to feel valued. Recognition costs nothing, yet its impact can last for years. A simple thank you, a sincere acknowledgement of someone's effort, a moment spent celebrating another person's growth. These actions may seem small, but they communicate a profound message. I see you. Your contribution matters. Human beings rarely forget how someone made them feel, and feeling appreciated creates loyalty that cannot be purchased. Future leaders also develop the habit of taking ownership of their learning. They don't wait for someone else to invest in their growth. They seek feedback. They read, they observe, they reflect. They ask difficult questions about themselves, not because they enjoy criticism, but because they understand that awareness is the beginning of improvement. Reflection is especially important because experience alone does not create wisdom. Two people can go through the exact same challenge and learn completely different lessons. The difference is reflection. Leaders take time to ask, what did this experience teach me? What would I do differently next time? How did my actions affect others? These questions transform everyday experiences into lifelong lessons. There is also tremendous power in keeping commitments to yourself. Many people protect promises they make to others while constantly breaking promises they make to themselves. They say they will exercise tomorrow, have the difficult conversation next week, or finally start working on their dream next month. Every broken promise quietly weakens self-trust. Leadership begins with leading yourself. If you cannot rely on yourself, it becomes difficult for others to rely on you. But every time you follow through on a commitment, even a small one, you strengthen your confidence. You prove to yourself that your actions align with your intentions. That internal trust becomes visible in the way you carry yourself, make decisions, and respond to challenges. Another daily habit is choosing generosity over competition. Insecure people often believe success is limited. They guard information, seek credit, and view others as threats. Leaders think differently. They understand that knowledge grows when it is shared. They mentor others. They celebrate another person's victory without feeling diminished. They understand that helping someone else succeed does not reduce their own potential. It expands the strength of the entire team. Patience is perhaps the most overlooked leadership habit of all. We live in a world that rewards speed, faster results, faster promotions, faster recognition. But leadership develops at the pace of trust, and trust cannot be rushed. It grows through repeated experiences where people consistently discover that your actions match your values. Some days your progress will feel invisible. You will wonder whether anyone notices your effort. You will question whether the small choices really matter. This is the moment when many people give up because they mistake slow progress for no progress. But every conversation handled with integrity, every challenge approached with courage, every promise honored, every lesson learned, every act of service, every decision rooted in purpose becomes another brick in the foundation of the leader you are becoming. Long before the world recognizes your leadership, your daily habits are quietly preparing you to carry the responsibility that comes with it.